If you are confused about everything that's going on in the economy, don't worry, you're not alone. Prices going up, fuel queues getting longer, and rates of the black market are going crazy. A lot of us are asking, what is really going on? Well, we'll try to answer that. Look, it's all about spending money that we don't have. Let's look at the numbers for a little bit. 3.8 billion bucks. That's how much the government spent in the first 6 months of this year. But here's another number. 2.5 billion. That's how much the government actually raised. So we have this big gap of 1.3 billion. That's what's called the deficit, the difference between what we spent and what we made. Well, this is basic stuff. It's not really rocket science. Think about it this way. Say you have a job. You make just 500 bucks a month. But you like nice things, so you stay in a big house, you eat great food, you send your kids to private school. You make 500, but the rent in your house is actually 1,000 bucks. You're spending more than what you're making. But how do you close the gap? You start borrowing. You borrow and borrow and borrow. But then you get to a point where nobody wants to lend you any money. They know you don't pay back your debts. They know that you like living beyond your means. So this is what's going on in Zimbabwe. We've been spending money that we don't have. So now we're at that point. People stop lending us money. How do we get out of this? In two ways. You either cut back on your spending or you make more money. Now, if you're making 500 but living in a $1,000 house, my guy, you need to move out. Quick. Get a cheaper place. Stop eating expensive food. Get your kids into a cheaper school. Basically, stay in your lane. But if you don't want to do that, then there's option number 2. Just make more money. And this right here is where Mtuli comes in. He's trying to do both of these things. Cut back on spending and raise more money. 1, he wants to cut the number of civil servants we have. Remember, we are spending 70% of our money paying government workers. 2, he says we just need to stop borrowing. 3, no more living the high life. We have to cut out all those spending on cars and foreign travels. But how much of this will really happen? Well, we're watching really close. Now, what do you do when you're that guy with a really big rent bill? Make more money. This is what Mtuli's trying to do. So he's done the tough thing, introduced a new tax. From now on, each time you make an electronic transaction over 10 bucks, you pay 2%. This is a big deal. Why? Because over 90% of our transactions in this country are done electronically. We're talking mobile money, RTGS, and all of that. 65 billion. That's how much money changed hands on electronic platforms in the first 6 months of this year. So if you do the math, that tax is going to rake in a lot of money, all these things being equal. But this is not new. A lot of other African countries are doing the same. In Uganda, we saw protests over this. They introduced the 1% tax on mobile money. They even have another tax on social media over there. Same thing in Kenya. Mobile money users there will now pay 15% tax on internet services. They also recently got a 20% tax on money transfers. In Zambia, there's tax on internet calls. All these governments are trying to get money from the public to cover for deficits. So there's nothing new here. But here's the thing. Mtuli says that we must all be ready to face the pain. We must tighten up our seatbelts. Fair enough. But as Zimbabweans, we've been taking pain already. A lot of it. We've been tightening our belts for years now. But you know who hasn't? The government. We've heard all this talk about cost cutting before. We heard, hey, we won't buy any more cars. But then we still saw people getting cars. The finance minister said he's cutting back on foreign travel. But we need to see this happening. This is what will build confidence, what will build trust. If we're going to take some pain, let's all take the pain. So are we back to hyperinflation? Well, not yet. But the price hikes are a bit scary. A lot of shops don't even put price tags on their shelves anymore. But why is this happening? Well, it's because we just aren't producing enough goods here at home. We've talked about this before on the show. Let's take one product, peanut butter. Why would something like Novi be going up in price? I mean, it's basic, right? Well, it's not so easy. Did you know we're importing 90% of the peanuts that we use to make peanut butter? That's right, we're importing peanuts. But that's not all. Do you know that we're importing half of the milk we consume? Yes, 50%. Why? Because we just don't have enough dairy cows anymore. We're even importing soya, the stuff that they use to make cooking oil. Now, because we just don't produce these things here at home, we must import them. And to import, we need forex. And it's getting harder and harder to buy that forex. So for the guy who makes peanut butter, it's costing him more and more to buy the forex, to buy his peanuts. So what's he going to do? Well, he's going to raise the price of his peanut butter. But let's just face it, there's a lot of people out there driving up prices and the forex rate. Dirty people. But we just have to work hard at making sure that we make more of the stuff here at home, that we don't have to import too much. And as long as we're not producing our own stuff, we're going to have to pay a high price. Literally. Mtuli has launched a new economic blueprint, the Transitional Stabilization Program. This is where he lays out what government will do over the next 2 years. It's quite a lot to read. There's 388 pages. It's full of great ideas, but that's just it. We've seen great policies before. Over the past 38 years, we've had at least 14 economic blueprints. There's one new policy every 2.5 years. That's a lot. Have a look. Now pay attention here. This is a long list. So in the 80s, we had the growth with equity, the 3-year Transitional National Development Plan, the first 5-year National Development Plan. Then came ESAP between 1990 and 1995. Then ZIMPREST from 96 to 2000. We had the Zimbabwe Millennium Economic Recovery Program called MERP in 2000. Then the National Economic Revival Program in 2002. The Macroeconomic Policy Framework from 2005 to 2006. The NEDPP came between 2006 and 2008. Are you keeping up? Great, because there's more. The Zimbabwe Economic Development Strategy, ZEDS, 2007 to 2011. The Short-Term Emergency Recovery Program, STERP, in 2009. Then there was another STERP, called STERP 2, the following year. Then the Medium-Term Plan between 2010 and 2015. And then the one that we all know, ZIMASSET. This was launched exactly 5 years ago in October 2013. So will this new one be any different? Well, it's definitely a lot more detailed than most of the other blueprints we've seen before. It has solid timelines. Some old ones didn't. This one holds people responsible too. Clearly these guys did their homework. But let's now see action on this. With all the confusion going around us, it's easy to get depressed, angry, frustrated. It's easy to lose all hope. It's not easy to be confident right now. But here's the reality. We have 5 years ahead of us. A lot of the things are going to have to change. In fact, if the finance minister does what's within his policy, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So you could cry for 5 years or find that small gap to make a difference. We've seen worse before, but there's nothing that a Zimbabwean can't overcome.